from a conference we went to, so that's no summit. And then I have an extra one there for you and one for Chris, too, because he's not here. And then we'll just give a couple highlights tonight about it that'll be included in the minute.
Thank you. I like Catherine.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, she was interesting, wasn't she, Amy?
Very, yeah.
She's very direct.
Super direct, yeah.
Strong Democrat, I mean, she made that known right away.
Nope. She's a planner and an attorney.
Yeah. She's interesting.
Where is she?
There were enough minutes, or not minutes, but agendas. Does anyone need an agenda? Yeah. You do.
Yeah, I got it. Yep.
Well, let me make you a copy. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Monday, September 23rd, 2019 Planning Commission meeting to order. Roll call. All let the record show all are present except Chris Lozano is absent.
And
As well.
And as well.
So far.
Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody had a chance to review the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions?
I would just like 5 minutes to address the conference that we went to. Should I do that under old or new business?
Or board discussion.
Or board discussion?
Board discussion, we did.
Okay. Add that.
I would move that we accept the agenda as amended.
I support that.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is to approve the minutes from our July 22nd, 2019 meeting. Are there any questions or corrections on page 1? Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. I've got a question on the motion by Rowe, second paragraph. Fifth line down, it says allowing an easement of 20 inches. Is that 20 inches or 20 feet?
20 feet. Thank you.
Anything else on page 4? Page 5. I've got a question on board update. The first bullet point The board voted to rejoin emergency services out of Glenville, bringing AMR to Glenville. Shouldn't that be bringing service to Saugatuck Township south of the Kalamazoo River?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
That's Saugatuck Township, so
I'll make that.
Hi, Ed.
Hi.
Welcome.
Sorry I'm late.
We're in the process of reviewing the minutes
Okay.
from our last meeting
In July.
in July. We're currently on page 5. Did you have any corrections or anything on pages 1 through 4?
No, I didn't.
Anything else on page 5? Page 6. I'd entertain a motion for the,
I would move that we accept the minutes as amended.
we have a second?
I'll support.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I want to say, very good job on the minutes. Very thorough, comprehensive. Great job.
Thank you. Who supported that? I'm sorry. Was that you, John?
Yes.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to public comments. Anybody wishing to speak about any subject at all, including things that are on the agenda for tonight, please limit your comments to 3 minutes, if possible. And then if you're speaking on behalf of a group, we'd like you to limit that to 5 minutes. Anybody in the first row? Second row? Third row? Fourth row? Back table? Okay. No public comment. First thing is new business. Some updates on the new recreational marijuana law. Your name?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to let the planning commission know that the November 1st date is approaching, whereby the state of Michigan will begin authorizing and issuing licenses for the recreational marijuana facilities. As you know, the township board, and with the input of the planning commission and the public, did opt out of the recreational marijuana licensing or allowing recreational marijuana in the township. At any time, the township can opt back in if so desired. And I'm bringing this up to the planning commission at this point because we have received calls from current facilities who have been approved for special land use for medical marijuana. We've also received calls from other individuals in-state, out-of-state, that there has been requests that the topic of recreational marijuana be brought back up for consideration. So I know that tonight is probably not the night to kind of have a big debate on that item. We would like to invite our township attorney at that time if we did want to have a more in-depth conversation. state has issued emergency rules for recreational marijuana. They issued those in July 3rd. I've been told that those emergency rules will in fact be the official rules, but we don't yet have the official rules. And so the thought is that perhaps we get those official rules from the state, at which time then we all have the opportunity to review those and become familiar with them, so that then we can have a more kind of comprehensive discussion about that topic if the Planning Commission wishes. So what I would like to hear is, I guess, comments from the Planning Commission, or if you want to direct staff, we can work on scheduling maybe a meeting time where that could perhaps be the only top county agenda. Our October agenda is quite full. I know at the time it said we didn't have any items, but in fact we do have several that have come in. So we could either do this as the November regular meeting, or perhaps look at a special meeting for this topic.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on the?
Well, I think it needs to be discussed, and I kind of personally like the idea of a standalone meeting, unless, there's no way to know, I mean, if there's nothing on the agenda for November, I'd hate to cancel that meeting and have this standalone meeting. The time's come, I guess we haven't talked about it.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of either a standalone meeting or schedule for November, and just maybe try to things light that night.
What is your feeling as far as when you think the rules will be? I know that the emergency rules are there, but the permanent, or is there any idea what the timing will be?
I don't know if any of the more knowledgeable people in the audience might know, but I'm thinking by the November 1st
It's logical.
deadline, so I'm thinking that they would be in place by then.
I do think it's a good timing to wait until November, so we get time to review the state laws, or state rules, and regulations.
Well,
Get
they
your
don't,
analysis in and put it together.
yeah,
I
if they
wasn't
don't really
aware
come
that-
into effect until November the 1st, by the November meeting, it doesn't give us much time. So I would think December or January is, in my opinion, it's more logical.
Well, except that she's saying that the emergency rules are going to be the permanent rules, and those are already out, so it's...
That's what I've been told. I'm not familiar with the process on how the state advances their administrative rules, but I believe that that's common practice. I was not aware of that, but yeah. So I think what we could get you a copy of those emergency rules now to look at in advance of whenever that meeting is, and then we can give you the official rules once we get them.
That would be great. The sooner the better. I don't know how many pages and pages it is, you know, but the more time we have to look at them, and if they do tweak them on November 1st, and that information.
And perhaps consult our attorney and see if the attorney can be here for the November meeting.
Yeah,
If not, maybe that...
he can.
He can, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He said that night, that Monday is open.
Now they're gonna be up to speed on it, right?
Saugatuck is opted out completely.
Of recreational.
Right.
So is Douglas.
Douglas has opted in.
For recreational, I'm not certain.
No, I think they opted out as well.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody kind of did it across the
Well,
board.
I know,
Yeah.
just until the rules come out.
I know, I think tomorrow night, I mean, we are definitely not the city of Grand Rapids, but I do know that the city commission is looking at opting in to recreational marijuana at their meeting tomorrow. And for the first 2 years, if there was to be an opt-in, those first 2 years, only those medical marijuana establishments can qualify for recreational.
Okay. That's
Which
that
is
new?
the,
No, that's all.
I think that's always been in there. because there's, I mean, they've been through the process for the medical.
And is this viewed as a moneymaker?
I think that's a great question for the township board. I'm just planning staff. I think it's more.
There's a 10% premium to the local community.
I think it's more viewed as, responding to the voters during that, ballot initiative.
Well, I would support putting it on the, agenda for the November meeting. I mean, again, I think most of what needs to be known is probably already known, and if it needs to be tweaked, there's gonna be 3 or 4 weeks, you know, from November 1st to our November meeting, where I think that information, the attorney will know, you know, everybody will have a chance to review it. You know, we may not have a December meeting, oftentimes cancel that for the holidays, and then you're kicking it to the end of January. You know, a lot of us are gone in January too, so it just seems like November would be the time to do it.
And our meeting is the Monday before Thanksgiving, just as a reminder, in case you're gone. Be nice.
I will be here.
I'll be here. Wouldn't miss it.
Thanksgiving. So do we,
Right.
vote on that, or?
No, I think I can take your direction.
Okay.
There's no needed.
So we don't need an extra meeting, is what we're saying?
We'll just put it on that agenda. I guess when my October deadline for applications comes, and say there's several, then I'll email everybody and we'll make it known when that meeting might be changed on that topic.
Okay.
And you'll go ahead with sharing the emergency rules?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yep, that would be 11/25/19.
Okay, the
Yeah, sure.
proposed zoning amendment?
Okay. All right, so I've had the pleasure of working with the zoning ordinance for a couple months now, and there are a couple of cleanup items, and then a couple of items that relate to the International Fire Code and being consistent with what is contained within that document. So the amendments that I have listed, these first ones are in section 40-658. And I don't know if you've probably already looked at them as part of your packet, but essentially this first section, it's funny, it has 2 different standards for private roads, one for more than 4 lots, and then a set of standards for less than 4, which leaves a gap if there are 4 lots. So all I would like to do is modify section 2A to read 4 or more lots. So I just want to get your blessing on these before we tee them up for a public hearing. So I'd rather work out any changes at this meeting, and then notice the public hearing for these text amendments. So that's why I'm discussing them with you and looking for just some head nodding. You don't even have to take a vote or anything on these. So that's what I'm looking for item A, if that makes sense. Okay. Item B. So as you know, the Township Board has reinstated its support for the International Fire Code. That was acted on by the Township Board in August. We'd like to amend the section of the ordinance, again, private roads, section 40-658E, to add the following item. In conformance with the International Fire Code as adopted by the Township and as amended from time to time. That way, if the fire code is amended, our standards would also hoping that this language would also be consistent with that. Item C in private roads, it's in the same section. Working with the fire chief, they would like to just remove that entire section because it's now handled by the International Fire Code. The second means of access is required when there are 30 or more lots. Our ordinance had, it was subjective, and the zoning administrator or the planning commission could require a second means of access depending on the number of lots. But since the fire code does regulate that now, that section seems superfluous and confusing. So we would like to remove that. D relates to passing lanes. That's in section 40-663C. I did reach the fire chief last week. He would like to remove that section as well because passing lanes are not required in the fire code. He would like to just make sure that any ordinance we have is consistent with the fire code. We don't want to be requesting more than what is in the fire code. I'm sure there's pros and cons to each, but I think he really wants to preserve the integrity of the fire code. The next two amendments are do not relate to the fire code. So this one, section 40-185, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but it was kind of interesting to me because this is the section that details the lot area requirements for the A2 zoning district. And it lists all, it has 4 sections, and it lists, A2 has to be 2.5 acres. It has a standard about lot frontage. And then the next item, C, says that there are no minimum lot or width requirements. So I just found that incredibly confusing, and I wasn't quite sure how to enforce that. And maybe it's in here for a reason that I am not aware of. But if I were an applicant, and as someone administrating this, I find it very difficult to tell someone what their minimum lot area is at frontage, and then see item C, which says that there is none. So I guess our recommendation would be to remove that item C and stick with the lot area of 2.5 acres and the frontage of 150 feet in items A and B. And then the next item, I do want to clarify this a little bit, but the site plan review section 40-812B, I do want to clarify that the requirement in that section is to notice adjoining properties. It's not all 300 feet, and it is not in the newspaper, but it's just sending a letter to anyone adjoining those properties. And this is, it has to be sent 15 days prior to the meeting, but not more than 30 days in advance of the meeting. And this is a notification that I've never come across in any of the communities I worked in or written a standard like this in any of the ordinances that we've prepared. That isn't to say that it may or may not be important here in Saugatuck Township, but it is an extra step. It's an extra administrative step. It takes time and effort, and typically for site plan review, if it's a permitted use, and we typically don't see that adjacent properties are noticed of a site plan review for a permitted use. It's up to you as planning commission to discuss that one because it's more of a philosophical, I think, conversation. But it certainly kind of puts us under the gun a little bit, having to get those notices out. It's not impossible, but it's an extra step, it's an extra cost, and it's more time. And it's unique. So I'd like to maybe hear some discussion on that from you this evening. So those are the amendments that we would like to advance. As I mentioned earlier, if you're okay with these, or we can tweak them, we would next prepare an ordinance to amend our zoning ordinance. We would set that for a public hearing for the October meeting. At the public hearing, you would look at the text, you could even change it at that time, and then ultimately you would make a recommendation to the township board. And then they would have that on their agenda in November. I know that the fire department is happy that we're taking these steps to be consistent with the fire.
Thank you. Any discussion on any of these?
I'm in favor of all of it, I guess, I mean, especially from a ZBA perspective. Right. Anytime we can clean up language and avoid, you know, ZBA hearings, I'm all for it. Right. So, I think it'd be great. And I agree with everything that they said, personally.
Anybody else have any?
I just wanted to comment on the issue of the noticing. We've gone through several of these in the time that I've been here in the office, and quite often, I can't remember what the notice reason was, but Kingfisher Cove a couple times has been within 300 feet, and half of the notices are returned. Because the owner, the tax record owner is not necessarily the physical address of the resident, and they don't even get delivered. And it is very labor intensive for staff to look at, you know, the cost. So, kind of maybe I don't know if luxury is the right word, but if it's that unusual, I thank you for bringing that up, and I think it's worth
It's like a waste of
that change.
It's a waste of effort, especially when it's a permitted use.
Right.
Right.
It's like saying I'm gonna build a house on a residential lot, but I gotta notify the neighbors I'm gonna build a house on a residential lot. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, so.
I really appreciate you bringing it all up. I mean, it all makes sense, and I'm really glad that you're looking at it.
I'm sure there is one.
I'm sure there is too. It's an awfully big
When
book.
time permits, right? Yeah.
Is it your nighttime reading?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank
That was
you.
great. It's great work.
Yeah.
Do you want to mention the mapping?
Oh,
You're not very excited about that.
I have that in board discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind.
So, we're all in agreement on that?
Yeah.
You all in agreement that?
Yes.
That you'll bring it back, the language in November, and,
Yep.
move on. Thank you.
No business anybody has? Back to public comments. Same the guidelines that I outlined earlier or apply to this as well. Anybody in the first row? Second row? Third row?
Good evening. Aaron Smith with AgriMed. Also just wanted to listen to what you guys had to say regarding recreational. And if you guys have any questions or concerns or anything, you can feel free to reach out to us. We've been knee-deep in this for about a year and a half, 2 years. So a lot of the specific questions, a lot of it the unknown. Some lawyers are up to speed on it, some aren't. Just to kind of address a couple of your quick questions. Yes, the emergency rules will be the rules that get put in place after November 1st. So a lot of other municipalities are moving forward with those as kind of their guideline. In regards to, I think there's talk about tax, yes, the only difference between medical and recreational marijuana is there's a 10% tax on the recreational marijuana. And of that, a percentage goes back to municipalities that allow retail recreational marijuana stores in their township, for instance. And as of right now, because of the way the law is passed, for medical dispensaries, townships don't receive anything directly from that, but with recreational, of the 10% tax notional amount, 15% of it goes back to somebody like if you guys were to opt in. So that's how you can get direct financial kind of gain from it. That was the incentives when it was voted in. Yeah, I know there's about a million other questions, but if you guys have it, I think maybe got my information, or I can sit down with you guys at any time and tell you
table?
Hi, Tammy Jacoby, 320 Blue Star Highway. I just wanted to bring to your attention that proposal 1 included an initiative option because drafters anticipated there would be communities where local officials weren't going to listen to the will of the people. So, this is an appropriate way to give voters the opportunity to make support heard. I just want to let you know that even if you decide against recreational, there's still an option in the law for the voters to come forward and put a ballot initiative. So, if they want it.
I would just say that's happened twice so far and it didn't pass, to my knowledge.
Says what?
It's been voted on twice in municipalities in Michigan, and both times it was voted down.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, our percentage, what was 71%? I mean, I don't want to be aggressive about it, but I just want to say there really is a way. Like, if you guys said no, you know,
And it
if it was
happened-
71%, they might just kind of.
I actually believe there's a way, an option for the public that does not require a vote.
Perfect. Whatever it is.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Tammy, I'm just.
Right, yeah.
I was surprised in those 2 municipalities where it was voted on and it was voted down in both
Right,
municipalities.
right. And, you know, I mean, the people who voted. But I get it. I mean, recreational isn't right for us. It isn't, you know, we'll let the people decide.
Bill, were those communities, you know, where the state ballot initiative,
Well, the communities had opted out of recreational marijuana. And so citizens in those 2 communities petitioned it, put it on the ballot in, I think, was it August? I think it was very recently. And in both of those communities it failed. Now
there's
those
one that
were,
had those communities vote the statewide president.
initially, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know where, yeah.
Good
But
question.
both of, if memory serves me, in both communities, it was defeated, by 55 to 45, so it was a pretty good spread. My guess is that's probably how the vote went down originally too. You know, but.
Okay, board discussion. Recording meetings.
I just wanted to give you an update that we are gonna record the meeting so that they are available, for our secretary and others who wish to, review those at a later date. So our meetings are gonna be recorded,
Video recording.
video
Yeah,
recorded,
it'll be on the YouTube.
and on the YouTube channel. Thank you for clarifying.
Are we
Haven't been on
making
that
them
channel.
public then?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
they will
just
be.
like the board meeting.
Okay.
Updated zoning map, so I'm very happy to say that we have updated zoning maps. You will be getting a copy of them soon, and the county has been very helpful with that. The new maps have better color schemes, so it's much easier to read, especially things like the R3 and the R3B, which, you know, take a magnifying glass to differentiate. So those maps are going to be on their way. We just have a little tweak on them, so we'll be getting them soon. And we'll have the digital version as well as print version. We also renewed our contract with Unicode, and Unicode hosts all of the general law and zoning ordinances on their website. It's a great feature because it's searchable, navigable. Unicode will update that every time we have changes. They tend to batch them and do kind of one bigger update during the year, but you'll all be able to, we're really trying to move more to digital, so you'll get notification when those updates are made, and if you do have paper copies, we'll make sure that we give you updates to the paper copies as well. Who has a book like Andy? Does,
I think we all.
everybody
I think we all
has?
have it,
Okay,
yeah.
great, okay.
That was my own.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Yeah, we have
Books in the
several of
office.
them here in the township hall as well, so. Just know that we've renewed that contract and that really is a great service to our community members and others wanting to know what you can and can't do in the township. I know I'm on Unicode all the time. October 28th, we are gonna have a presentation by Ryan Kilpatrick about housing. I think it will include some of the tiny house discussion, as well as other findings that Housing Next has related to housing availability, affordability, like supply, demand, housing type. Ryan would like to present at 6 p.m. at the October meeting, so I was wondering if you wouldn't mind starting a little bit early, and we could devote an hour to that conversation.
I think it's an important conversation.
And then we can move into our regular, planning commission meeting, since we do have a few items on that agenda.
Everybody good with 6 o'clock?
Perfect.
Okay. I'll also send an email to all the planning commissioners, and we'll put a notice out for that change. And then just a heads up on the next agenda, our October 28th, so we'll start at 6 p.m. So far for the agenda, we'll have a public hearing on the text amendments we just talked about. I believe we'll have a public hearing on a medical marijuana provisioning center. I believe we'll have a public hearing on a medical marijuana grow facility. And we will also have a site plan review for a wood shop / warehouse building in the industrial district.
Busy night.
I will have to send over just to the adjacent property owner for that one now, because the change won't have to, will not have been placed by then. But yeah, so it is a bit of a busy night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Becky,
Oh,
review of the conference.
Andy and I and Cindy. Anyway, I left, just some information about the conference that Andy and I and Cindy went to down in Kalamazoo, and, after we went, I just highlighted a couple things, so I will just make it shorter than these 10 pages, so, just kidding. But, you have this information, and it was very nice. I want to say thank you to, Saugatuck Township for sending me along with Andy and Cindy. And it started with a statutory authorization for zoning and the legal framework for common law for things such as nuisance laws and other things. That's on page 2. But then also note there's legislative preemptions from Township Zoning Authority on page 3. And I thought that was interesting, including things like the Right to Farm Act, the small cell towers, public schools, county facilities, primary caregiver marijuana, MMA regulations, and state prisons, all being exempt from local zoning. And there seemed to be a lot of interest in short-term rental and issues related to it at this conference, which information starts on page 4. And the biggest concern I noted was sort of the tipping point of when is it short-term rental and when does it become commercial, hotel, motel. And short-term rental is usually less than 28 days. It does have fire code limitations on the number of occupants and follows the township rental ordinances. And it was noted that townships should really avoid getting involved with neighborhood ordinances that define neighborhood rentals. There's more on short-term rentals on pages 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the Right to Farm Act is laid out really well in the next 8 pages. They spent a lot of time talking about that through page 16. And then page 16 to 23 addresses the zoning for marijuana. It was noted that township law has been trending over federal law when it gets into the court system. And also interesting was that township zoning prohibiting outside growing was preempted by the MMA. There's no zoning regs that apply to caregivers, and now it's in the Michigan Supreme Court and set for an October conclusion. So we'll hear more about that then. They also said when recreational is passed, the first 2 years of licenses will be granted only to those who are current medical providers. And then noted on page 20, it listed 6 types of businesses associated with marijuana, which we're all familiar with. The grower, the processor, the safety compliance facility, micro business, which I really wasn't familiar with, but retailer and secure transporter. I guess I thought micro business and retailer were pretty much the same, but apparently they're not. But also included in the MRTMA, which is the Michigan Regulation and Taxation Act of marijuana, is 4 additional types of businesses that were approved and put in there. One is an excess grower, and then a designated consumer establishment, which is similar to what they have in the Netherlands, like brown bars and things like that, where you can go in and smoke in a public place. Also, marijuana event organizers, and so you can have marijuana at events, and a temporary marijuana event license. So those are really already approved and in the Act. And then page 21 describes the opt-in, opt-out issues and what's required if you don't opt in, and the things that a township can define, such as signage, hours, zoning districts of where the facilities are located. But they said if you really limit the number of facilities in your area, that you had to have pretty stringent rules as to why. So they said because a lot of those are ending up in the court system. And then going on, page 24 and 25 discusses regulations for sand mining. And basically it says you can set your standards. If they don't comply, you can remove your SAU, but you can't stop it, and it's a go on sand mining. And then on page 31, you can see there's just very little discussion on small housing. In this pamphlet that I handed out is all these squares. There's one square on small housing. There's minimal discussion. They cited, someone in the audience cited that there was a small housing project in Holland, which I think we're aware of over there on Central Avenue and 16th Street. I think there's 6 units there. But so I just wanted to note that at a conference I was at a little over a year ago in Grand Rapids, they did talk a lot about small housing in Michigan, and it was suggested that creating a vision is the best way to have successful change in housing and community. So I think it's really important that we're having our presenter, Ryan Kilpatrick, and starting that discussion. And they also talked about just a few key things, which I'll tell you. It's very important to protect your assets as a community, and they may not always be tangible, but they're perceived assets. So the things that make your community strong are the things you really want to protect, and that brings people in, and smaller housing makes it somewhat affordable, although at our conference that we were just at, they said there really isn't any such thing as affordable housing. So, you know, I think there's all kinds of aspects to that, but they did tell us the 11 aspects of a successful community in Grand Rapids, and it's strong leadership, a comprehensive plan, that it's community-led, and it's volunteer-rich. There's good strategic decision-making processes, those things like knowing what to do and what not to do is strategic planning. That it's asset-based, so it's based on your resources and your environment and your people and your commercial district, based on all of that. That it supports growth from within, so it's supporting entrepreneurs, new ideas, new development. That your community is a one-stop problem solver, and it starts with your leadership. That you prioritize housing. So I think that's really important to just keep saying, we need to prioritize housing and look at our community and what kind of a community we are. Holland did a fabulous study that I was involved in probably 8 years ago on assessing their community, and the community tends to be growing into more seniors in the area. So we did a community growth assessment all the way into Full Circle in Grand Rapids, involved people down as far as South Haven, and looked at how we could support that and what we needed to do for that community in making it much more accessible for seniors. But It should be professionally led and have a really good network of communication. So it sounds like you're working on that too, and that's really nice. And that we should all be, as a community, enthusiastic and unapologetically relentless, rather than picking the cheaper and quicker path. And I think that's a real great path that we're on too as a community. So I think that we have a lot of positive things here. And one thing I really enthusiastically came away from that conference was that we have an opportunity to create neighborhoods that have a variety of housing and typologies. Today's successful neighborhoods truly include a mix of residential, civic areas, parks, and commercial space. And I keep hearing that subdivisions are going out. And I think that we've seen a bit of that in Michigan, that subdivisions really isn't even the key word. People like to talk about neighborhoods because neighborhoods offer more. They offer community, they offer places to gather, they may offer a commercial something or walkability to somewhere. So small homes must include also garage space in the back, not in the front of houses. And I think as we start planning for the future, we need to remember that and now start looking at houses a little differently when you see these smaller homes, and note where the garages are. If the garages are in front of the houses, there's a new word for that. It's really not a new word. It's called snout housing, you know, which you can remember that. You want the garages in the back. So Grand Rapids has a lot of these neighborhoods popping up, and the garages are in the back, and they look adorable. So they strongly emphasize that front porches on the front. Small homes work beginning at 800 square feet or more, and the research right now says 300 by 300 square foot lot would support a really good small home project. So the challenges for small homes have been with fire departments and having access, which is very, very important. Bungalow style is a diffuse housing. You can do small homes with that. Townhomes are considered attached housing, just, you know, for your benefit to know that. Today's millennials really want walkable urban housing. So for more on creating neighborhoods versus subdivisions, here's the one site you can go to. It's called rgibbs, G-I-B-B-S, at gibbsplanning.com. Again, that's rgibbs at gibbsplanning.com. So that's my update.
Thank you for sharing all this. That's great. Have you given a copy to Griffin yet, or?
No, but I gave the extras to Lene.
Okay, yeah, let's make sure.
And so that would be great. I thought Cindy may have given him one though, but I'm not sure. But there's an extra one there, and you can also make copies. Yes.
Because one issue, I mean, we get a lot of emails and phone calls and people coming in on the short-term issue.
Yeah.
And he's been handling this really, really well. And as you know, there's only certain things we can do about it. And
Exactly.
we do have some persistent people that keep coming back with issues. This is really helpful, thanks.
You're welcome.
Andy, I didn't notice on the agenda the board update wasn't there.
Oh,
Okay.
That's
I don't have to give one.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Please do.
All right. Things we did at the September board meeting just a couple weeks ago, kind of in order of how they happened. I think you're aware, the township has been formally invited to join the Kalamazoo Lake Harbor Authority, something that's been talked about on and off over the years. Our legal counsel is preparing a resolution on the 10th that will be considered at next Wednesday's township board meeting for a vote. If the board votes that we want to join, then the authority has already said you can come in, no cost, no historic costs, and no commitment to cost in the future. It's up to each community for any potential project. Then the two city councils have to approve that, and if we end up a full voting member of the authority, we will then get to two appointments we can make for members of the Harbor Authority. I I had served for 4 years as the non-voting representative a few years back. We also realized that we did not have an active construction board of appeals, and we appointed Chuck Carlson, Robert Firmus, and Jason Deddick. They all agreed to serve on that, and apparently this entity doesn't meet that often, probably even less than the ZBA does, but we were required by law to have them in place. Let's see. You've probably heard talk that we are moving forward, as was already mentioned, to rejoin the Emergency Services Committee in Fenville, which operates the AMR ambulance contract for properties in the township south of the Kalamazoo River. That was originally voted on, a millage, back in the 80s, and then it was suspended a few years back. There will be a public hearing as part of the next Wednesday's board meeting on that specific issue. And the next step would be to reinstate that special assessment on the winter tax bills. And I've looked at a report, and the typical amount for people is in the $3 to $6 a year range. A few are higher because of the size of the property. Let's see. Griffin has worked very diligently on updating and submitting to the board new revised personnel policies and financial policies handbooks that will be further discussed next week. We also had public comment and entertained a discussion when it was revealed that the Allegan Road Commission has been using the herbicide and pesticide Roundup, which has concerned a lot of neighbors about this. So the board instructed Griffin, with input from 2 of the board members, to draft a letter of concern to the Road Commission, which has been submitted. The medical marijuana ordinance, those tweaks that we discussed here last time, were approved by the board. Those were all relative to the 50-foot. 500, right. 50 inches, 500. Let's see. Also, we adopted a resolution. It's been requested that a speed study be done for 62nd Street at 131st Avenue, south of Old Allegan Road. That will be executed by the Road Commission and the Michigan State Police. We've renewed our cemetery services agreement with the city of the village of Douglas. Saugatuck we've not concluded that, and just if any of you have friends or people that live in the city of Saugatuck, that does mean that when they come in now to purchase cemetery plots, they're paying $2,000 versus $50. It's in their interest to sign the agreement, but it hasn't quite happened yet. And municipal code you've already covered, and it was a long meeting. I think those things were pertinent to share. Thank you. Next Wednesday, if you want to come, right here, 6 o'clock.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Yes.
Thank you.
Where are we at with the litigation? I know that according to the commercial records, the court said that the Conservancy or Alliance didn't have standing in 2 of the issues, but there's still one outstanding. Is that?
All I know is what I read in the paper as well.
Okay. I mean, it'd be nice when it's all over.
Right.
The last I heard was, I guess, the appellate court decision in Grand Rapids was the one that is still sort of open. And
There was one,
it could be a couple more months before there's a further hearing. That's
I
all
mean,
I know.
the appellate court said through the suits, they did not have standing,
Right.
but there was still one suit that they sent back to the circuit court. And I'm just wondering.
Right. And we haven't had an update. You know, there's a specific attorney handling those cases different than,
I don't know.
No, I'm telling you.
Oh,
Yeah, because several months ago, we had a closed board meeting for him to update us. There has not been a similar update. So what's been in the papers.
Okay.
Yep.
Please, inquiring.
Good question.
Anything else? Anybody else have anything?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, for coming in.